when you were speaking, you said that, Russia cannot lose the war, will not lose this war. And so I'm wondering if you had contemplated, because we have people like Elon Musk contemplating what an end to this war would look like. He's on Twitter talking about what he believes, a UN kind of oversight over new referendums in the Donbass. He also talked about a neutrality, right? That Ukraine would submit and surrender to some kind of agreement to remain neutral, and NATO would, of course, go along with that. Now, what is your idea in terms of your thoughts about what would victory look like for Russia if that's indeed where we're going?
Well, we have to look at it from the big picture. Before there was a special military operation in Ukraine, there was December 17th, 2021, where Russia provided NATO and the United States with a draft treaty that described the conditions for a new European security framework. Russia basically said that it could no longer tolerate the expansion of NATO up to its borders. It could no longer tolerate the forward deployment of NATO forces along its borders, in that it now needed to have a new European security framework that put restrictions, binding restrictions on both parties, not just Russia dictating to the West, but Russia responding to the concerns of the West as well. This was dismissed by both NATO and the United States, which helped lead to one of the precursors for the current conflict. Russia hasn't backed down. That's still their ultimate objective, is to achieve a new European security framework. Now, a couple things have to occur in that. One, you need total victory in Ukraine, not partial victory, because Russia can't dictate a restructuring of European security framework if there's still a Nazi regime in Ukraine using NATO weapons to bleed Russia dry. That's not good. So Russia's going to have total victory, and I'll get to that in a second. But Russia also needs to have a Europe that's willing to enter these negotiations, and that's not going to happen so long as Europe is totally beholden to the United States. But I believe, because of the failed policies imposed on Europe by the United States, that there's going to be revolutionary transformation in many parts of Europe this winter, and that the Europe that emerges from this winter will be far different than the Europe that enters this winter, and it will be a Europe that might be more inclined to consider a new European security framework. And one of the reasons is because the political structures right now that serve as an impediment to this, NATO, the EU, G7, are all, there's no unity there. I mean, Biden can talk all he wants about unity. There's no unity. NATO's at war with itself. I mean, what do you say? When the Poles say the Germans owe us $1 trillion in reparations, and the Germans say, really, we might take Silesia back from you. That's not unity. When the Turks are ready to go to war with the Greeks over the Aegean Islands, and France is ready to side with Greece against Turkey, that's, NATO's more in danger of going to war with itself than it is of going to war with Russia. The European Union, you just had Giorgia Meloni, elected Prime Minister of Italy, and she has basically called the European Union, trash, called the Euro trash. She wants to divorce Italy from this. And what happens when the German economy collapses? The foundation of the Eurozone is gone. Can the Eurozone survive? As more nations seek to rally around issues of national sovereignty as opposed to European collectiveness, the EU collapses. The G7 is supposed to be the 7 most influential economies in the world. They're not that influential anymore. They're going to become less influential once this winter's finished. So politically, these structures are gone, and I think Russia is going to be in a position to successfully negotiate a new European security framework with post-conflict Europe. But a prerequisite to that is winning this war. What does winning look like? I think winning looks like the following: Russian troops advancing all the way up to Ukraine's borders with NATO. That means the total destruction of the Ukrainian military and the total elimination of the Ukrainian government and the the various governing structures in Ukraine to purge them of the ideology of Stepan Bandera, that Ukrainian ultra-nationalist, Nazi-loving, murderous thug who's responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Jews, hundreds of thousands of Poles, hundreds of thousands of Russians, who currently is the national hero of Ukraine, and has streets named in his honor, statues erected in his memory. This has to be purged, eliminated from it. That's what denazification means. This means that Ukraine will cease to exist as a modern nation state, and that whatever Ukraine looks like once this conflict ends, it won't be the Ukraine when this conflict started. It won't be the Ukraine today. I think Russia will take even more territory, but it will be a total victory of Russia over Ukraine, a victory that sends a signal to every nation in Europe that war is not the answer, that if you go to war with Russia, this is what happens to you. And I think the Russian victory has to be that complete, and that's what Russia's moving towards. Vladimir Putin hinted at this in his speech, and the mobilization of 300,000 troops, combined with there's an additional mobilization of 70,000 volunteers undergoing right away. So it's not 300,000; it's 370,000, probably closer to 450,000 by the time all the volunteers get processed. These troops combined with the 200,000 give Russia more than enough military capacity to do this. I think Russia is going to be unleashing a strategic air campaign that hasn't existed yet, that is going to shut Ukraine down, destroy it economically, make movement almost impossible. If Zelensky doesn't die from bombing, he's going to be forced into hiding. He won't have the ability to communicate freely with the rest of the world. All of this is about to happen. And when it does, it'll point to a total victory of Russia on the battlefield, the elimination of Ukraine as a modern nation state, and a post-economic crisis Europe that has been transformed through its own internal revolutionary processes to empower a new class of political and economic elites who will be more inclined to work with Russia, less inclined to do the bidding of the United States.